Hey everybody, I'm Bill Vencil. This is Chords of Orion, and on today's video, I'm going to show you a Fractal Audio FM9 Frippertronics patch that sounds like this. So this is my first attempt. Let's just walk through the patch. I've got the FM9 edit software pulled up. As you can see, we're just plugged into the guitar input. That's input 1. And as you look at this patch, if you're not familiar with the FM9, you're just plopping down effect blocks, and then you're connecting them with the lined connectors. And the block connected to the input is a compressor. And this is, I believe it's supposed to model the old MXR Dynacomp. You know, just a very simple guitar-based pedal compressor. Here's what it sounds like. You can hear that it's catching the pick attack of my guitar and providing some additional sustain. Next up, right after the compressor, is a volume pan block. What I'm doing with this block is connecting the volume control to my expression pedal, and it just acts like a standard volume control. Yeah, very straightforward, very simple. You can see that volume knob moving, right, as I move the volume, the actual physical volume pedal or expression pedal. Next up is the amp and the cabinet. I'm going to go ahead and turn them both on at once, and let's go ahead and break it down. First up, for the amp, I'm using the amp type called Double Verb Normal. So that's going to be a Fender Deluxe Reverb, or maybe it's a twin reverb. I think, yeah, double verb, right? So a twin reverb, the normal channel. I'm not going to go through all of the knobs here because there's a lot of options, a ton of options. But basically what I did was to take the kind of the default state of that amp model, and I lowered the bass a little bit because I'm playing a baritone guitar and this thing can get pretty bassy. So I lowered that a little bit, and what this gives me when I add it into this cabinet, which is a 4x12 greenback. So again, that's one of my favorite combinations, a Fender amp model into a Marshall 4x12 greenback amp cab sim. There we go. And here's what this sounds like. Yeah, you can, it's got a Fender-y kind of thing, doesn't it? But it's very clean. And again, with this cab sim, I'm really actually impressed with the Fractal Audio cab sims, because not only do you get the cab sim, but you also get so many other options. There's a whole preamp section where you can model a preamp to go along with your cab sim. I'm using a tape style preamp. There's a whole room and air section where you can bring in the room sound that's modeled around the cab simulation itself. It's very cool. It's very nice. Yeah, it's very organic sounding to me in a digital sort of way. All right, let's go ahead and get into delays. First delay is going to be a stereo tape delay. And as you can see here, check that out. I've got it set to 84 milliseconds. And what I'm using this for is basically a slap-back style delay. The reason why I have a slap-back delay patched into the overall preset is that for many of Robert Fripp's early Frippertronics experiments, he actually did have a slap style tape delay going on. And this was a result of him using the two tape decks together, if you're familiar with the old school technique of doing Frippertronics. And if I use my EBow, or if you don't have an EBow, if you're creating this patch, if you kind of patch in a distortion or a fuzz to get some sustain, here's what you get. That's kind of cool. So with that slap delay, you really get some depth going with your sustained lead tone, or in my case, the EBow. Now I'm going to skip over delay number 2 because it's the long delay that's going to create the Frippertronics effects. But I'm going to go to the next one after that one, and then we'll come back. This is a graphic equalizer. And one of the things I noticed when I was putting the patch together is, it's a little muddy. There's kind of a buildup in the lower mids. So I pulled up a graphic equalizer, and what I did was I just pulled down the low bass at 31 hertz, pulled down a little bit of 125, 250, and 500 just to clean things up a little bit. That sounds a lot nicer. Let me bypass it. You'll be able to hear the mud. Yeah, hear that mud now. Yeah, I like that a lot better. It creates more clarity as I'm playing all the loop layers. So next, let's go to the reverb block. And what I've got going on here is the type called Rich Hall. And I've got it set down to a fairly short decay time and a kind of a medium-large size, 75% size, and standard echo density. This is cool with these effects on the FM9. There are so many freaking options to really kind of fine tune. I switched up the EQ just a little bit to knock out some of the high end to mellow out the reverb, and here's what I get. You can hear it's kind of just like a room sounding reverb, isn't it? Yeah, so what I've done now is set up a kind of a fairly dry bed, if you will, for the Frippertronics delay. So let's go ahead and get into that and see what's going on here. So first up, I'll mention that I'm using the Ambient stereo delay type. And I've got it set to the maximum delay time, which is 16,000 milliseconds or 16 seconds. Yeah, that's cool. Because it's a stereo delay, you've got separate left and right feedback. So I made them just a little bit different, 40% versus 38.8. And we've got the left-right ratio time ratio set to 99%. So we're going to get a lot of back and forth as this very long delay sounds out to create my Frippertronics layers. Let's see what else is going on. Diffusion, I added in just a little bit of diffusion. So as the delays repeat and begin to decay out, they just kind of get a little more muffled and a little more diffuse. There's not much in the way of drive. I don't want a lot of, at least for this patch, I didn't want a lot of grit in the tone, but just a little bit. And we've got just a little bit of modulation going on here. I actually took the default setting, and on LFO3, it was set all the way up to 100%, and it was a really wobbly sounding delay, which was too much. So I brought it back to about 25%. And then this is what we get. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing. Now, it's important to note that you're not going to hear any layers come in for 16 seconds. So do be patient as I get this thing going. Here we go. I'm loving that. As you can hear, there's a lot of layers that can build up over time as you play. Again, I'm using the Heat Sound EBO to kind of get that violinish or maybe clarinetish type sound. But if you don't have one or don't like using EBO, you can easily add a distortion into the front end of this patch and then use the volume pedal to swell in distorted lead tones. And in fact, that's a lot of what Robert Fripp did back in the day, back in the late 70s into the early 80s when he was doing his classic Frippertronics albums. So what do you think about my first foray into the Fractal Audio FM9 with a Frippertronics style patch? Drop a comment. Let me know. Good? Bad? Ugly? I do have to say I've been pretty impressed by the FM9. There are a lot of features, and I mean a lot of features, I think that will allow anyone to tweak the unit to get exactly what type of tones and sounds they're looking for. It's pretty cool so far. I'll definitely be following up with more FM9 videos as I get more into the unit and share with all of you my journey with this unit. Here's a playlist of some other Frippertronics style looping videos. Hope you'll check them out, and I'll catch all of you on the next video.